We are back from closed session. We will continue with our agenda items, and we will now move to take action on items from closed session. Do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Chief Academic Officer as presented? Phil McNeely moved, and Cassandra Phillips second. Are there any questions, comments, and discussion? Motion passed, 6-0. Oh, I'm so sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the appointment? Yeah. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? So, let me see. Please show of hands for a motion approved. Please, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6-0, motion passed. Do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Director of Technology of Operations as presented?
So moved. Second.
Carla Fahey moved, and Cassandra Phillips second. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? If there are any questions, please raise your right hand to approve such motion. Right hand. 6-0. Motion passed. Kathleen Brown will now introduce the new Chief Academic Officer, Director of Technology Operations.
All right.
Thank you, Kathleen.
All right. I will ask Dr. Jaretha Jordan to join me at this time. It brings me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jaretha Jordan as the Chief Academic Officer in Duncanville ISD. She brings over 18 years of experience in education. Dr. Jordan received her Bachelor of Business from Northwood University in 2004, her Master of Education from the University of North Texas in 2009, and her Doctor of Education from Tarleton State University in 2017. Dr. Jordan has served as Assistant Principal, a principal in Crowley and Mansfield ISD. She has also served as the Executive Director of Professional Development and Instructional Support Programs in Crowley ISD for 3 years. Most recently, she has served as the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Irvin ISD. In addition to her skills and expertise, she brings a true, genuine passion for students being able to achieve beyond their maximum potential. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jaretha Jordan to the Duncanville ISD family. And Dr. Jordan has a family member with her here this evening, so if you would stand. I think this is your brother, right? This is her brother, so welcome. Next, Mr. Brandon Thomas. Next, I have the distinct opportunity to introduce you all to one of our own, Mr. Brandon Thomas, as he's our new Director of Technology Operations in Duncanville ISD. Mr. Thomas has served the district as Network Engineer for the past 3 years. Prior to joining the Duncanville ISD team, Mr. Thomas held various roles in the industry for 17 years as a Network Engineer, Technical Support Supervisor, and IT Relationship Manager. Mr. Thomas is known for the positive relationships he has built with the technology staff and other staff members across the district. His ability to serve and support with excellence is valued and appreciated by all. Please join me in celebrating Mr. Thomas in his new role as the Director of Technology Operations, where he will continue to lead with unstoppable excellence. Mr. Thomas. Thank you.
We will now move to opening ceremonies. Please join me for a word of prayer as I lead. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to meet together. We come united to be reflective of your kingdom. Breathe life into our discussion and decisions. Help us to be a team of leaders, educators, and trustees that have love and respect at its heart. We pray, Lord, you would provide strength to continue working through this time of pandemic chaos. We pray, Lord, you provide us provision to be a brilliant light example of your goodness wherever we are at. Lord, I speak a blessing for those attending tonight and involved in the presentation and those behind the scenes. Allow your will to be done. In his name, amen. And now we will move on to the pledge. And Ms. Carla Fahey will lead us in this.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the superintendent's report. I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Smith.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice President and other board members and those that are in attendance this evening. Board, I have the following items that I would like to report on this evening. The first is our Acton Leadership Academy. One of our goals, as you know, is to focus on student, family, and community connections. And one of the action items under that goal is to provide students with choice. Well, the Charles Acton Leadership Academy is one of our first ventures into our elementary schools to begin our choice options at that level. And on last week, we had an awesome opportunity to be able to present our Leadership Academy to the Leadership Southwest. It's a leadership group of community members, business leaders that visit schools and other businesses in the Dallas and the best Southwest, actually. And so they chose to visit Charles Acton's Leadership Academy. And it was a great opportunity for our students to be able to showcase all the great things that are going on, be able to talk about leadership opportunities and the Leadership in Me curriculum program that our students are involved in. And it was so awesome to hear our elementary students talk about the seven habits of effective leaders, and to hear them have command of that information and to know that they're going to be involved in deep study of leadership opportunities was awesome. And it was great to be able to present that to the leadership group, the business community, and other members of the leadership community on last week. We have a brief video that we want to show you that pretty much highlights the events from last week. And so if you could roll the video, please.
Hi, I'm here to welcome you to the Charles Acton Leadership Academy. I am so excited to tell you about all of the wonderful additions to our campus this year. We are going to be providing all of our scholars with great opportunities for leadership. We will be developing the whole child to discover the genius in them. Here's how.
This is our 7 Habits tree. It's here at the front entrance of the school to remind every kid like me who walks in and out of these doors that we have a leader inside of us.
Every grade level now has an updated collaboration space equipped with an area rug, flexible seating, and interactive Promethean board.
This is our multiplication window. When we are standing in line to go to the library or cafeteria, we can practice a multiplication so that way we are ready to excel every day in math.
Coming up or going down our stairs, remind us of our sight words, fractions, shapes, Here to language, numbers, Spanish, and English so that even outside our classroom, our learning never stops. Whether we are upstairs or downstairs, the 7 Habits can be seen wherever we go.
This mural reminds us that our teachers and administrators believe in us and that are committed in making sure that we learn, lead, and succeed because we are the best. Each of these pillars has one of our 7 habits that remind us of great leadership qualities like being proactive or to begin with the end in mind.
We have 2 window wraps on our campus. Each one shows off our new name updated mascot, as well as our Duncanville Nectin Prime.
We know children thrive when they feel safe, confident, and nourished. By helping each child discover their unique gifts, we will be able to bring out the leader in them. We will succeed. Thank you for watching.
So the students did an outstanding job. There were other performances that took place, and those students actually guided the committee that was there on tours across the campus to display the great work that was going on. So we're really excited about our Acton Leadership Academy and all the great things that our students will experience there. The next item that I have for you is a report on the high school college fair at Duncanville High School. Of course, one of our goals is student academic success, and under that, our action plan is to increase the percentage of students who meet at least one indicator of our college and career military readiness. Also, to continue to create a college-going culture. And so we had more than 100 recruiters that were in attendance at Duncanville High School. The college fair was from 2 to 4 on last week. And by hosting it on our campus at the end of the school day, it reduced the barrier of transportation and students being able to make it to attend the event. The purpose, of course, of that annual college fair is for our seniors to learn more about the admissions requirements as they prepare themselves to complete the college application process. The college fair also serves as a kickoff for the Dallas County Promise. You may be familiar with the Dallas County Promise. It's a pledge where our students earn their associate's degree through the Dallas College at no cost to the student. And so we're excited about the work that's going on there for our college-bound students. And we wanted to report on the success of the college fair. Myself, several other board members were able to be in attendance there on that evening and to see our students interact with the college staff that was there, get information, break down any barriers that existed, real or unreal, so that they can know that college is definitely an opportunity that is very real for them. It's really good to see that, and it's just part of what we do here in Duncanville. The next item that I have for you is this month is a National Hispanic Heritage Month. One of our goals in our strategic plan is to focus on students, family, and make community connections. This really is in a line and consistent with that. Hispanic Heritage Month, it launched last week, and it goes through October 15th. There have already been multiple events at campuses. We've had special theme days. We've celebrated the rich history of our Hispanic culture, and many of the campuses are focusing on Hispanic leaders and icons, in addition to clothing and food and other cultural ideas that are associated with our Hispanic community. And so the goal is to educate our students about contributions that Hispanics have made to our nation and will continue to do so in the future. This year's theme is Esperanza, and that's hope, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. And so we're really excited about all the things that are going on this week and this month at our schools. The last item that I have for you is a great accomplishment by one of our employees. It's Coach Reginald Samples. This past week, he earned his 300th win. And so with the football team's victory over DeSoto, it was a great win to get 300 on. So we're excited about that. Always excited about that. But it was a great evening and just a great opportunity to celebrate a huge accomplishment and milestone in Coach Reginald Samples' career. By winning his 300th game, it made him, he's a member of a class of only 13 high school coaches, football coaches in Texas that have achieved that number of wins. And of course, he is the first African-American coach to do so. And so we're really excited about him. We know that his influence is much bigger than football, and that means so much to myself, so much more to all of us, as he really makes a life-standing impact on the young men that he works with each and every day. We have a brief video to highlight his 300th win, and then, Madam Vice President, that would conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
300 is sacrifice.
Dedication.
Powerful. It's legendary. 300 is commitment to excellence.
Perseverance through all obstacles.
Grinding. It's grit.
A lot of dedication.
On the field and off the field.
It's hard work.
Unstoppable excellence,
365 days a year, day in, day out.
both in the classroom and on the field of competition.
300 is
300 is
300 is
300 is
Coach Reginald Samples.
It's a great time to be a Panther. We all agree? We will now move to recognitions, and I will turn the meeting over to Tiara Richard.
Good evening, Madam President, Vice President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Smith. Can y'all hear me clearly, or do I need to remove? You can hear me? Okay, perfect. All right, so donations. Every month, again, I get the pleasure of coming before you to talk about people who are generously giving to our district. And as we always say, every dollar matters, every gift is received and graciously accepted. So I will start off with our first donation recognition, Hillcrest Baptist Church, which is located in Cedar Hill. They generously donated 85 backpacks to the Counseling and Social Services Department. The backpacks were filled with school supplies that will be a great resource for our students and teachers in the classroom. The donation is valued at approximately $1,500. And up next, we have a donation from Canton Properties, Austin Bluff Apartments. Norma Jean Carranza is the manager at Austin Bluff Apartments, and they have a history of donating to the district. And so in this moment, they chose to donate some toiletries that they had. They purchased toiletries specifically for some of our teenagers and older kids. They've done donations for younger kids in the past, but this year they wanted to specifically provide toiletries, knowing that our younger students are often thought about for school supplies, but people don't always think about the toiletries and the needs for our older kids. And so in trying to seek the right place to give the donations that they provided, they sought out the athletics department and donated items to the boys and girls basketball teams. So these toiletries include deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes, body wash, and soap, as well as sanitary napkins for girls. And the value of those donations is $270. Up next, we have Rotary Club of Duncanville. This group has been a long-standing supporter of our district, and we're forever grateful of all that they do. Proud to announce today that the Rotary Club of Duncanville helped launch the school year for students by donating school supplies to the Counseling and Social Services team. The donation is valued at $250. Thank you, Rotary. And up next, we have the Lily of the Desert Nutraceuticals. You always wonder how people find us and what makes them come to us. This business is actually in Louisville, but one of the staff at Pace High School has a family member who works for this company, and they heard about the start of school and the need to provide hand sanitizer, and so they donated $235 worth of hand sanitizer. And this is a privately owned company that they operate and manufacture organic aloe vera. And so being able to provide that service to our staff was their wish. Again, that donation is valued at approximately $235. All right, and up next, every year, over the last few years, we have received a very generous donation from Concord Church. Concord Church Senior Pastor Brian Carter and the congregation there donated $10,000 to Duncanville ISD for our back-to-school efforts. And as you can see in the picture and the item I have here today, they bring a big check with you, and then they also bring the small one that we can actually deposit and give that to Dr. Smith. And so Concord Church, again, big supporter of all the best Southwest schools, but we still think that we might be one of his favorite. And we're grateful for their generosity and their gift. And it's not just the financial contributions. The church as a whole is regularly reaching out and supporting our schools. So we are grateful and appreciative of this effort and their donation of $10,000 to Duncanville ISD. All right, last but not least on donations, this was a unique donation. Miss Amy Larry, who is a teacher here in the district, and her daughter, Bailey Cannon, they're a mother-daughter author duo team. And so here's the book that they donated to the district. It was a $20 value, but it's a book about the pandemic. They wrote it together. And so talked about their processes of how the pandemic hit and how this mom and teacher worked through the pandemic with her daughter. And it's a children's book aimed at third grade students. The student in the book is a third grader. And just talked about that journey of having to wear a mask and the process of learning at home and all of the things that all of our kids have gone through. And so they wrote this book together, had it illustrated and bound and donated it to the district. And so it's been given to the Counseling and Social Services Department, and they'll be able to use it as a social emotional learning tool if they choose and to the best of their ability. So it was one book that was donated valued at $20. And so we're very grateful for this unique and creative gift giving. And that concludes donations.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Yes. Thank you for all of the contributions. We so appreciate it, and we are very grateful. We will now move to conduct a public hearing to allow public participation and discussion for Oh, we have one more. I'm sorry.
Sorry, that concluded donations, but we still have Made with Pride. So Made with Pride in Duncanville, where we honor a teacher, student, and staff each month, is back. And so up first, for our Made with Pride in Duncanville honorees, I'd like to call up Miss Lupita Villalobos from Smith Elementary School. So Ms. Villalobos, she is a pre-K3 bilingual teacher at Smith Elementary School this year. Yes, I said pre-K3, so that's the 3-year-olds, the littlest babies. So she has made a special effort to reach out to the families of our pre-K3 scholars to help them feel connected to their school. One parent stopped Miss Kelly Stevens in the hallway early this year and said that Miss Villalobos really goes out of her way to really make his child feel so very welcome. In fact, he said his 3-year-old wakes up excited every day to go to school. And we want that for all of our kids, especially when they're just starting out and learning what school is all about. Another parent told Miss Stevens that she loves the way Miss Villalobos makes her child feel welcome and heard each and every day. I'll tell you, when we went to go surprise Miss Villalobos at school, it was nap time, so it worked out well, because normally there's like 1 or 2 kids like stuck to her leg and she can't walk anywhere. And so they're constantly there because they love her and they know that she cares for them and wants nothing but the best for them. So when our youngest learners are starting school, it is so comforting to know that we have a teacher like Ms. Villalobos who is a blessing to our scholars and our students and our families. Congratulations, Ms. Villalobos, for being named our Made with Pride in Duncanville Teacher of the Month. All right, so we will keep it going. Up next, we have our staff member of the month, Miss Noella Waivers. All right, so you heard the big applause for Miss Waivers, because just about everybody in this room has had an opportunity to talk to Miss Waivers at some point. Miss Waivers was selected as the staff member of the month after being nominated by her boss, the Chief Human Resources Officer, Miss Kathleen Brown. So Miss Waivers is the district's risk manager and works in the Human Resources Department. When the pandemic hit, several roles throughout the district had to change and alter, and Miss Waivers, in addition to doing her regular responsibility, also had to become the primary contact for all staff-related COVID-19 cases. Anyone who works in this building knows that when we're leaving at the end of the day, and we all leave pretty late frequently, but her car is still usually out in that parking lot. And it's usually one of the first ones here whenever we get here in the morning, because she has so much to handle and so much to take care of, and she takes such time
with each and every individual she has to talk to. It's not just the volume of people she's talking to, it's the care she gives to every person when she talks to them. So it's Ms. Waiver's responsibility to make phone calls to employees who have tested positive, been in close contact with someone who is positive, or has someone in their family who may have tested positive. She has done a remarkable job remaining calm, asking the right questions, and communicating what next steps people must take. You can imagine that when people are fearful and they don't know what to do, having that sort of calming support just steadily ready there, it makes a huge, huge difference. And again, every day, Ms. Waivers makes a huge difference in the lives of so many of our employees. Ms. Brown said, honestly, I don't know what we could have done to implement the staff COVID processes with fidelity without the leadership of Ms. Noella Waivers. In addition to taking care of these added responsibilities, she's also continues to take care of her others and just does it with a smile and so much support. So for this and so many other reasons, Ms. Waivers, I want to congratulate you as our Made with Pride in Duncanville Staff of the Month. All right, our student could not make it here this evening, but we do have a video to show you and recognize our student, staff, and teacher of the month, so we'd like to play that video now.
Duncanville ISD congratulates the following student, staff member, and teacher who are made with pride in Duncanville.
I'm Lupita Villalobos, and I am a pre-K 3 dual language teacher here at Smith Elementary. I just think that it's really important to build relationships with my students, getting to know them, what motivates them, their cultural background, all of that helps inform my instructional practices, and then having a good relationship with families just ensures that we have ongoing communication and can really work in partnership to help the little ones grow. Every little thing that we do makes a difference, and I just love working with the kids, and I hope that when they grow up, they remember me as being their first teacher.
My name is Chris Zenon, and I'm a senior. I had a lot of friends really struggling. I helped them work with the teacher and help them understand the actual material because they were my friends, and I didn't want to see them fail. And I knew they had the potential to get it done and stay on track to pass their classes and eventually graduate this year.
Mrs. Waiver serves as the risk manager for Duncanville ISD. She is constantly responding, being proactive, being responsive to our employees. And one of the things we've learned about COVID is that it has hit people in so many ways. And so her ability to listen, to be thoughtful, to be caring in her response, just coupled with her availability, and has gone a long way for employees. And so with all of her other duties, none of those things have gone away. She's continued to do it without complaining, a smile on her face. And we're just thankful and blessed to have her as a part of the Duncanville ISD family, specifically the Human Resources team.
These honorees truly are made with pride in Duncanville.
We will now move to conduct a public hearing to allow public participation and discussion of proposed tax rate.
Good evening, Madam Vice President. It's hard to say. Board of Trustees, Dr. Smith, as you're aware, before you can establish a tax rate for the year, we have to hold this public hearing for public comment and, of course, any discussion that you might want to have about it. Next slide. An unusual value growth this year in that it only grew about 1.1%. Typically, we've seen somewhere between 7 and 10%. Those of you that own homes here probably saw a whole lot more than that 1.1%. Most of that small amount of growth was because of businesses and what they lost because of the pandemic. So your houses probably didn't see that small of growth. But the certified values, we had $5.7 billion last year, and it's $5.768 this year. There's about $143 million that's under protest, so that could possibly come into that certified value later on. So you can see it wasn't much of a change. Okay, next slide. The maintenance and operation tax rate, as you're aware, since House Bill 3 was passed, the state pretty well determines what our tax rate is. They send us a spreadsheet to work through it and then let us think it's ours, but they have to approve it and it has to set their criteria. So we basically set the maintenance and operation tax rate off of formulas from the state. This comes about because after House Bill 3, if you remember, there was tax compression each year that tried to keep the tax rates down because of the fast value growth, so the taxpayer didn't have to pay quite so much. When we calculated it this year, the tax rate without voter approval was 0.8476. If you remember back when the TRE was passed, it was 17 cents, but that's now compressed down to 0.1283. So not only does the regular maintenance and operation tax rate get compressed, so did that enrichment tax rate. So you add those together, it's 0.9759. If you happen to notice the posting, that was 9798, I believe. The way the law reads is you can always set it lower than what you posted, but you can't set it higher. So we're actually dropping that about 0.4 of a penny in order to be in compliance with the state. So it's actually 0.0417 less than what the tax rate was last year. Okay, next slide. Interest and sinking tax rate, this is the debt, what we pay debt with. For the last few years since the penny swap, the rate's been 0.35 or 35 cents. We can drop that 1 cent and still pay our debt this year. And if you remember when the penny swap first passed, we were paying part of our debt service out of the fund balance in debt service, and now our reduced tax rate will pay that without any fund balance being spent on debt. Okay, next slide. See, this is a comparison from 1920 and, well, actually those dates are wrong. I fixed the dates on one slide. It's 2021 and 2122. So this past year it was 1.0176, 35 cents, or a total of 136.76. The average value of a home in the district was $163,483. The taxes would have been $22.36. For this coming year, it's 0.9759 and 34 cents. Total 131.59. The average home value went up 174.019, or the taxes would be $22.90, and so that value would cost the taxpayer $54 a year more because of this situation than it would have this last year. Our tax rate reduction would have dropped it by $40, but because the average value went up, then the amount of taxes that are paid went up. Sorry about the dates. And I believe that's it. Be happy to answer any questions you might have, or anyone from the audience might have.
Thank you. There are no questions or discussions for this item. The hearing is now closed.
Thank you.
We will now move to communication from citizens to discuss pending agenda items before the board. There are none. We will now move to consent agenda. We did not make any changes, so therefore we will move on to item or action item.
With the vote on consent.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Phil McNeely moved,
Second.
and Jackie Colton second. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed, 6-0. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, and we do not have one? Okay. Do I have a motion in regards to the request for a waiver from the Texas Education Agency for the 2021-2022 school year? We will call up Dr. Karen Holochka for this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Vice President, trustees, and Dr. Smith. I'm pleased to share with you a recommendation to approve the use of an alternative reading assessment instrument for the 2021-22 school year. In accordance with Texas Education Code 28.006, districts are required to administer a reading assessment to 7th grade students that failed to demonstrate reading proficiency on their 6th grade STAR assessment. The state has limited districts to the 4 reading instruments that have been approved by TEA for this required diagnostic assessment. However, districts may submit a waiver for this year to utilize a different instrument if preferred. Since Duncanville ISD has adopted the NWEA MAP growth assessment that is nationally normed while also being aligned to our state standards, we, like many MAP districts, are recommending we focus our efforts on utilizing the assessment we have already implemented this year as opposed to over-testing students with an additional instrument. All of our students in grades K through 12 will take MAP growth assessment at the beginning, middle, and end of year. This will allow us to monitor student progress through the year for our 7th grade students as well as all other students. In addition, we will evaluate the feasibility of aligning to the state's recommendations throughout the year to determine if that is a direction we want to go in the future. Therefore, it is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the request for a waiver from the Texas Education Agency for the 2021-22 school year to substitute the MAP growth reading assessment instrument for the required grade 7 reading diagnostic instrument. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Seeing that there aren't any questions, do we have one? I'm sorry, Dr. Ivory.
So what is our plan? How will we use first of all, I'm glad to see that we are using the maps for using something we already have. So what is our plan? What will this look like?
So with our MAP growth assessment, it does provide us with a Lexile score for our students. It also gives us a projected score for our STAR assessment. And so what we are doing is every student will take their reading test at the beginning of the year. They've already done that through MAP growth, and then we will take it again in the middle of the year and see where their growth is. It gives us a deep look at exactly which standards they're struggling on so that we can better diagnose prescriptively what it is that we need to target for improvement. What we will also do is one of the diagnostics that is listed for the state is iStation. We do currently offer that for our elementary campuses, and they still use that in the interim between our beginning, middle, and end of year MAP assessments as well.
Okay. So logistically, like, how is this given in their 7th grade English class? What does the testing look like?
Yes, the MAP is an online assessment, so they do it through utilizing a Chromebook, and so they will do that during their regular reading, math, science courses. And it does take about 40, depending on the assessment, it can range between about 45 minutes to 60, so it could be done over multiple classes. It may not all be done at one sitting.
So the English teachers are given a schedule of when they're tested?
Yes.
And it takes like 3 to 4 days?
It can, depending on the grade level. So the younger students, theirs doesn't take as long as the older students. Now, with English, with reading, we do have a reading and language map. They have 2 tests for reading there so that we can also look at that language component for the writing and the editing and pieces of that nature.
I'm talking in response to using maps instead of the other TA recommendations, just for 7th grade, just for the 7th grade reading.
So we would test them during their regular English class, whether we were utilizing the district, the map growth, or the state. We would be assessing them in the same manner.
Okay.
Because they're online assessments.
And so is there a completion date that we'll have the 7th grade reading? I'm just trying to visualize what this looks like.
Yes, we have windows. And so the window for map growth, that window's already closed. The diagnostics for the state also have a window of time in which you give it within a certain window.
Okay, thank you.
And that window's already passed as well.
Why only the 7th grade?
That is, the state has identified that grade level as being a grade level where they expect us to do some form of reading diagnostic. We also have to do it at kinder, first, and second. That is a required reading diagnostic. Those are required grades as well. But it's also 7th because of the age in which they feel as though there's a time that we need to make sure students, before they go into middle school and high school, have all the foundational reading skills necessary for success. Because what we know is that we have some students that get up to that secondary level and they don't have the foundational reading skills that they need in order to be successful. So there's often times in which they have to have additional intervention at that middle school level to make sure they have solid reading skills.
Thank you.
Dr. Ivory has one more question.
And if you have to follow up with us on this one, that's fine. I'm just wondering, how's the data used to inform instruction? Like, what do we do with the data? What does that look like?
So we analyze the data at both, at various levels. So we analyze the data at the district level. We do that as part of, with our senior leadership. So we look at those data points in a meeting that we have with Dr. Smith to analyze where we're at as a district. And then each of our campuses also analyze their data as campus teams. And then they look at the data more directly at grade levels and as well as at the student level. With MAP growth, we also give reports to family reports to our parents so they can also see where their students are at.
I think what I'm asking is, how's that data used to inform the instruction? Like, how fast is that turnaround loop for teachers to address it?
It's immediate. So when they take their assessment online, they can immediately go in and see the students' scores.
Okay.
And they can start right then utilizing it to create their groups of students so that they can do targeted interventions immediately.
Are there any other questions, comments? Thank you. Very good questions, ladies. Do I have a motion in regards to the request for a waiver from the Texas Education Agency for the 2021-2022 school year to substitute the MAP growth reading assessment for the required grade 7 reading diagnostic instrument?
So moved.
Dr. Ivory?
Thank you. Second.
Cassandra Phillips, second. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passed, 6-0. We will now move to action item B, consider approval of request to the Texas Education Agency for a maximum class size exception waiver The presenter is Dr. Karen Halachka.
Well, good evening again. Tonight, I am going to share with you some of our elementary class size ratios, and we'll be recommending for approval the submission of 28 class size waivers to the Texas Education Agency in accordance with Board Policy EEB Legal. As noted in the graph, our elementary school enrollment has surpassed the projected enrollment by approximately 300 students across all grade levels. Due to the increase in student enrollment, some of our classrooms have exceeded the 22-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. Districts are required to submit a class size exemption waiver for any pre-kindergarten through 4th grade class that exceeds a student-teacher ratio of 22-to-1. Although we work to avoid going over 22-to-1, it is a positive indicator of our enrollment trends and places students first by allowing them to remain at their current campus as opposed to being transferred to another school, further disrupting their learning. As of today, we have 28 classrooms that have exceeded the ratio with overages ranging from 1 student to 5 students. 11 of these 28 classrooms are only over by 1 student. Before we look at this year's waiver request, I do want to remind you that in years past, prior to COVID, we had larger waiver numbers at our elementary campuses. With a decline in enrollment during the 2019-2020 school year and COVID in 2020-2021, our waivers dipped but were not representative of past years. This year, because we know there is a learning loss, we have worked in close collaboration with campuses, human resources, the chief of schools, bilingual ESL, and student data management to work to address overages quickly with teacher adjustments, approval of student transfers, and daily data tracking to ensure our waiver requests are limited and COVID precautions are adequately maintained for student and staff safety. As you can see by this chart, the 28 sections that are exceeding the 22-to-1 ratio are at 8 different campuses. The largest class ratio size is 27-to-1 at Alexander Elementary in both kindergarten classrooms. The hiring of an additional kindergarten teacher has been approved to be placed at Alexander to ease this class size ratio. Our pre-K classrooms also already have an aide assigned to them, which supports with the 1 student overage at Central. So of the 28 waivers, only 5 of them are in our bilingual classes as well. As is noted in the far right-hand column of this chart, the reason for requesting waivers is due to the increase of student enrollment within Duncanville ISD. Our primary rationale, as previously stated, is that we do not want to further disrupt the learning of our students and are placing their social emotional needs first by allowing them to remain enrolled at their current campus instead of moving them. Since the overages are minimal, we do believe that we are able to adequately accommodate the academic and emotional needs of our students at this time. Therefore, it is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the request for 28 class size waivers to be submitted to TEA and to authorize the superintendent of schools to approve any future maximum class size exception waivers for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Carla Fahey has a question.
Thank you. The material we received had a request of 31. So since this was printed, have we had 3 classrooms that are down now to the 22 or below?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I also noticed that Fair Meadows is not listed. Does that mean we're all 22 or below at Fair Meadows? Okay. So is that 28 classes out of how many?
Total classrooms?
So I could just do the multiplication, nine elementaries times the, 4 sections, or?
The sections vary by every
or
campus.
seven?
But we can count up all the sections and give you that.
But we're way less than half.
Oh, yes.
Okay, way
Oh,
less.
yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know this will change tomorrow.
Yes, it will.
That's just how we do.
It will.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jack, Trustee Colton has a question.
Thank you, Dr. Halaska, for your report. It is encouraging to see that there is growth in enrollment at our schools. I guess, can we speak to the hiring efforts that we're taking to alleviate, some of these waiver situations?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Brown would be more than happy to speak to that.
Good evening. So as we all are aware, hiring looks very different this year with the shortage of teachers nationwide. Here in the state of Texas, it's no different for us here in Duncanville. We have hired several full-time substitutes in our district, so the hiring efforts that we are seeing as we try to fill this position as well as a few others is posting our positions out there, getting information from our alternative teaching programs as they have new candidates to come in. Posted in multiple places as well is another opportunity for us to try to find someone. So as soon as we do, of course, we're going to get them hired on so that we're able to bring those 2 classrooms of kindergartners that are at 27-1 down. In the meantime, some of the efforts that we do to support is to provide some additional instructional aid support, because 27 kindergartners feels a lot different from 27 fourth graders. And so we're just supporting in any effort that we can. So, okay.
Thank you, Trustee Colton. Do I have a motion to approve the request for a maximum class size exception waiver as presented, and hereby authorize the superintendent of schools to approve any future maximum class size exception waivers for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
Colton
Second.
moved, and Carla Fahey second the motion. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed, 6-0. We will now move to action item C, consider approval of request to the Texas Agency for Optional Flexible School Day Program. The presenter is Dr. Karen Halashka.
Thank you. Tonight I'm going to share with you some information on the Optional Flexible School Day Program, and we'll be recommending for approval the Optional Flexible School Day Program for Pace High School in accordance with Board Policy FEB Legal. Optional Flexible School Day Program is a flexible method of taking daily attendance for at-risk students. The methodology focuses on students' accrued instructional minutes over the course of days rather than being absent or present at a given time of day. 4 hours of instruction equals 1 eligible day present. In a traditional attendance method, if a student comes to school after attendance is taken at the official attendance time, daily attendance funding is not generated. However, in an optional flexible school day program, if a student comes to school for 4 hours over the course of one or fewer day or a few days, attendance funding is generated for 1 day. Many students enrolled at Pace High School work jobs or care for their children and are unable to attend school full-time. Adopting the optional flexible school day program would benefit the district by collecting attendance funding through accrued instructional minutes per student rather than the traditional attendance method of absent or present. PACE's 3-year average daily attendance rate is 78.21. Currently, the average daily attendance rate is 66.13%. Calculating student attendance by minutes would increase PACE's attendance rate and in turn increase funding for the school district. Attendance is always a challenge at an alternative campus, and COVID added another layer of difficulty to this. However, PACE and DHS have worked continuously to re-engage students with phone calls, emails, and even home visits. This past week, they visited over 24 homes to try to get students to commit to returning to school. This is just one of the many examples of how they are continuing to go above and beyond to support our students. Therefore, it is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the optional flexible school day program application for Pace High School to the Texas Education Agency for the 2021-22 school year. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, seeing that we have any questions, I will make the motion. Do I have a motion to approve the optional flexible school day as alternative method of attendance accounting for Mary E. Smithy Pace High School for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
Colton moved.
Second.
And Trustee Phillips seconded the motion. Are there any questions, comments, and discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Jackie Colton, did you have a question?
I just have a comment. I would
Yes.
just like to applaud the district for bringing forth, this recommendation to the school to the board that will, increase the amount of funding that we get.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Trustee Colton. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to action item D, consider adoption of the tax rate for 2021-2022 fiscal year for the general fund and debt service fund. The presenter is Dr. Ed Bigby.
Good evening again. As we mentioned in the hearing, tonight's the night that we ask you to adopt the tax rate. It's been posted legally as the state requires, and then we've had the hearing, so all we need now from you is the approval of the resolution to adopt the tax rate. Once again, the maintenance and operation tax rate of 0.9759, debt service of 0.34, a total of 131.59. If you are going to approve this, I'm told the motion needs to read exactly how it's written in the agenda item. Answer any questions you might have.
Seeing there are any questions, we will make a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the property tax rate be decreased by the adoption of a rate of 1.3159 for the general fund and the debt service fund, which is effectively a 2.4% increase in the no new revenue tax rate, but a reduction of 3.5% over the 2020-21 adopted tax rate?
Madam President,
Trustee Fahey?
I move that the property tax be decreased by the adoption of a rate of $1.3159 for the general fund and the debt service fund, which is effectively a 2.4% increase in the no new revenue tax rate, but a reduction of 3.5% over the 2020-21 adopted tax rate. This is the tax rate as presented by Dr. Ed Bigby, Chief Financial Officer, and as recommended by Dr. Mark Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Trustee Phillips, seconded by Trustee Phillips. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed, 6-0.
Thank you.
We will now move to action item E, approval to certify Dallas Central Appraisal District certified rolls for 2021. The presenter, Dr. Ed Bigby.
On page 100 of your book, there's the submission that we got from the appraisal district listing the certified values for the year. We have to have a formal approval from you, the board, to accept those values, and we had asked for your approval. Answer any
Dr.
questions
Bigby,
you might
can
have.
you review the document for the board, please? Just give them context of what's in that document.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you'll notice, the top of it, the first line is the total appraised value, all the property in the district. The second line is after all the exemptions have been applied, which are quite a few of those, some of those being very helpful for the homeowner because there's homestead exemptions involved in it. In the middle of the paragraph, there's values that are under protest. I discussed that a little bit in the first time. There's a market value and then a taxable value for those. And then values under protest claimed by owners that estimate the appraisal district that we will get those, or they'll be upheld, and you can see that amount there for a total estimated of $88 million that was to come into the certified roll, but we don't know that until the appraisal board gets through reviewing those. And new constructions at the bottom of you can see we didn't have a lot of new construction in the district last year. Sometimes that number's been considerably higher than that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Do I have a motion to approve the appraisal roll for the district from Dallas Central Appraisal District?
So moved.
Trustee Phillips,
Second.
and seconded by Trustee McNeely. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to action item F, nomination to be considered for the Dallas Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. The presenter is Dr. Ed Bigby.
If you're on the board 2 years ago, you'll remember that every 2 years there's an opportunity for the district to nominate someone to fill one spot on the Dallas Central Appraisal District Board. All the districts in the Dallas Central Appraisal District, except the Dallas ISD, all have an opportunity to nominate someone. Dallas gets to nominate their own because of their size, but all the rest of us pool together, and each board has the opportunity to nominate someone. You can see in the agenda item there's quite a few specifications of what that person can be. 2 years ago, you nominated Ms. Phillips, and she was elected. I have to tell you, since that time, I've received one email from Richardson ISD asking if Ms. Phillips was going to be nominated again, and to please let them know, because they had contacted the appraisal district and talked about what a wonderful job she did on the board. So no pressure or anyone, but if the board would like to nominate someone that meets the qualifications, which Ms. Phillips certainly meets those qualifications again, then you can do so. We'll send that in to the appraisal district. They'll put a ballot together. I think last year there was 3 people on the ballot that had been nominated, and Ms. Phillips was elected by the other school districts. So this is the opportunity for the board to nominate someone to be put on the ballot. We'll bring it back to you in November to vote on once the ballots are received back. So
Absolutely.
if you happen to know anybody that's initials are Cassandra Phillips that would like to serve on that board, then
I'd like to nominate Cassandra.
Second.
hear that train a coming.
Okay, I'm going to have to read it all. Do I have a motion to nominate Trustee Cassandra Phillips by approving the said resolution to be considered for a membership in the Board of Directors of the Dallas Central Appraisal District?
So moved.
Board Member Phil McNeely moved, and Dr. Ivory seconded the motion. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passed, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to information and discussion items. The first item is to discuss refunding bonds. Presenter is Dr. Ed Bigby.
As you know, we have our debts financed through the sale of bonds. And every so often, it's usually at least once a year, our financial advisor considers our situation and looks at bonds that are going to be callable, which means we can actually get those refunded at a lower interest rate. Josh McLaughlin is here from BOK Services to walk you through a presentation of this, and he came to Dr. Smith and me. We had a good discussion about bonds that we could refund and possibly save the district a considerable amount of money in the long run. So I think Josh is here. I'll get out of his way, and then I'll come back when he's finished.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to see you all tonight. If you want to flip to the first slide, we'll start walking through it. All right, so before we talk about your current opportunities, let's talk about how the district has actually managed its portfolio. Since 2005, the district has implemented, I believe, 9 different refunding programs, refinancing more than $275 million of its outstanding debt at a lower interest rate, saving taxpayers over $39.3 million. The district has also prepaid roughly $1 million of bonds, saving an additional $558,000. So since 2005, by actively managing Duncanville ISD's debt portfolio, the district has reduced its interest costs for taxpayers by $39.8 million. Say that again.
Yeah.
$39.8 million, because
Right.
not many people remember that. So if you flip to the next slide. So this is a look at the district's current debt portfolio as it stands right now. As of today, you have $195.3 million of bonds outstanding, roughly average annual debt service payments of around $17 million, $17.5 million until 2033, when you see a drop-off. Again, your bonds are repaid over a 24-year period. You are rated AA3 at Moody's Investor Service and AA- by S&P, which are phenomenal credit ratings. But keep in mind, every time you sell bonds, you sell it with a permanent school fund guarantee, which comes with the automatic AAA rating. Next slide, please. So, out of the $195.3 million you have outstanding, $155.7 are callable prior to final maturity. These are the bonds we could potentially prepay to manage your annual tax rate and or refinance at a lower interest rate should prevailing market conditions allow. If you look at the green column, that's the call date. I will refer to this in the future because tax law dictates how we refinance bonds. If you refinance bonds within 90 days of that call date, you could do it on a tax-exempt basis. If it's more than 90 days, it's known as an advance refunding, and pursuant to current federal tax law, you have to do that on a taxable basis. So if you look at this chart, your Series 2011 and 2012 bonds are callable this coming February, which means you can implement a refunding program in November or thereafter and do that on a tax-exempt basis. The remaining portion of the district's bonds would have to be refinanced on a taxable basis. You want to flip the slide? The next couple pages are just sort of terminology. We've already talked about advanced versus current. Again, all it is the duration of when you issue your new bonds compared to when the old bonds get repaid. Under the Tax Cuts of Jobs Act of 2017, they took away tax-exempt advance refundings. Believe it or not, they're trying to reinstate that as part of the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. We'll see if that gets through Washington. But right now, only your 2011, 2012 bonds can be done on a tax-exempt basis. If you flip the slide. The other two things I wanted to visit with you about are the state mandated par-to-par test, which basically says every time you refinance your debt, you can issue no more principal than you're actually refinancing. Makes sense because they were originally voter-approved bonds. In order to meet the par-to-par test when you're selling taxable bonds, because everything outside, over and above the call date on the new taxable bonds is sold at par, you may potentially have to issue a premium capital appreciation bond. Something the district has historically tried to avoid. These are not the same as, the cabs you heard a few years ago at Leander where they were selling 40-year debt. These are much shorter, much more manageable, and cost efficient. The other piece of it is negative arbitrage. So think about when you actually go issue bonds. What happens? You take proceeds from that new issue, you put it in an escrow, you invest it to pay off your old bonds when they become callable. Right? So under tax law, you can earn in that escrow up to your new bond yield. The reality is if you look at your investment earnings right now, you really can't earn much at all. So negative arbitrage is basically the opportunity cost, which you can legally earn versus what you can actually earn based upon prevailing market rates. All right, if you flip the slide. So currently you have $16.3 million of your Series 2011, 2012 bonds outstanding at an average interest rate of 3.76. We would look at potentially refinancing that. If you hit the next slide. So in the green, those bonds are outstanding at 3.76. If you sold bonds today, it would be a 180. Based upon that change in interest rate, the district's taxpayers would save an additional $3 million. That is roughly $273,000 a year over the life of those bonds. Again, that's 11 years. Keep in mind when we refinance, it's not like refinancing a home mortgage. We don't refinance for another 30 years. We keep the same repayment schedule. We just replace the higher interest rate debt with lower interest rates. On a present value basis, it comes out to a percentage of 16.39%. As a general rule of thumb, 3 to 5% is what the Government Financiers Officers Association recommends. So 5 to 10 is excellent. Anything over 10 is sort of a no-brainer. Next slide. We also looked at the bonds that could be done on a taxable basis, which are your Series 2013A, 14, 15 refunding issue, and 15 new money issue. We went maturity by maturity, looked at the interest rate that's outstanding, what could the new interest rate be, and measured what kind of savings you get, and look at the portfolio. The ones highlighted in green meet certain criteria. That means at least 3% present value savings and negative arbitrage of less than 55%. So you can see those maturities on page 8. If you flip over to page 9. You'll see the maturities there. What's interesting, based upon where interest rates are and what you can earn in the escrow, the farther that you go out in terms of when that call date is, the higher the coupon rate needs to be on your old bonds to make it cost efficient. In this case, you'll see there are a lot of 4% coupons that we're not refinancing because they won't meet the thresholds, too much negative arbitrage. If you flip to the next slide. So based on the foregoing slides, there's about $107 million of your debt that could be refinanced on a taxable basis that we would deem cost efficient. Those bonds are outstanding at a true interest rate or a coupon rate of a 4.9%. If you flip the slide. So the same thing. If we refinanced in today's market, the new interest rate would be 2.44%. Okay, so we're taking long-dated debt, in this case 23-year debt, and we're getting it done, including all cost, of less than 2.5%. Now, unfortunately, we can only earn about 43 basis points in that escrow. But total savings, $21.69 million. On an annual basis, that's roughly $943,000. From a present value basis, it's 16.2. Again, as a percentage, 15%. It hits the criteria. Now the bad news. Cost of the advance refunding, negative arbitrage. This is the savings that you're foregoing because we can't earn enough in the escrow. If there was no negative arbitrage, instead of saving $16.7 million, you'd save an additional $6.4 million on top of it. As a percentage of your present value savings, you'll notice it's roughly 39.5%. We never recommend anything over 50. We typically like to see it 40 or less, and right now that meets that threshold. Now, unfortunately, in order to meet the state-mandated par-to-par test, we do have to issue about $10 million of capital appreciation bonds. These fully mature by February of 2027. Okay, the interest rate on these bonds are less than 1.5. They are not long dated, but it allows us to comply with state law. And the last thing is, really, what is the district's option? Well, the option is to wait till, let's say, 2025, when the other bonds become callable, and complete a tax-exempt refunding. How much do interest rates have to go up between now and then in order for the district to break even? And that's 145 basis points. Now, you may ask, what's the likelihood of interest rates going up 145 basis points in the next 3 years? And if I had a crystal ball and knew that answer, I would not be here tonight. I'd be trading my own portfolio. What I could tell you is, I will tell you, I believe interest rates will be higher, but to what magnitude, I just don't know.
Right.
Is it in the realm of possibility of 145 basis points? Yes.
Oh, no.
Could it be more? Could it be less? So I'm going to stop there for a second. If you have any questions about that at all. All right. You flip the slide. So we're here tonight to talk about these particular opportunities. What we'd like to do is come back at your October meeting and ask for permission to adopt a parameters order. What that will allow us to do is, subject to certain parameters, allow the district's administration to move forward with the sale of the bonds to lock in these savings. If you flip the slide. So there would be two orders, one for the taxable and one for the tax-exempt refunding program. For the tax-exempt refunding program, we would have to achieve savings of at least $2.5 million, net of all costs. Keep in mind, today it's $3 million, but we're going to put a minimum savings parameter of 2.5. We could refinance no more than that $16.355 million. The true interest rate cannot exceed 2.25%. The final maturity cannot be exceeded. So right now, those bonds mature in 2023. They would have to stay that way. And this would give us a year to get this completed. For the taxable, we would have to save a minimum of $20 million net of all costs. Again, the interest rate cannot exceed 2.5%. Final maturity currently goes out to 2045. We cannot exceed that. And again, it gives us a year. The reason we're asking for a year, especially on the taxable refunding program, is interest rates are pretty volatile. If you looked at the market today, the Dow went down pretty dramatically. Well, so did the Treasury market, which is good for the district, right? But we may get to the day of pricing and rates don't make sense. Right. This allows the district's administration to basically time the sale, if you will, to where it's most advantageous to the district. Unless each and every one of these parameters can be achieved, we can't sell the refunding bonds. I know I went through that relatively quickly. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
I have a question.
Trustee Colton has a question.
Thank you for your presentation. So the difference between a taxable and a non-taxable is something like 0.6% or something currently?
So that is a wonderful question, but it depends on which bonds you're actually refinancing. So for argument's sake, the reason we do taxable versus tax exempt, or in the vice versa, tax exempt versus taxable, is when the underlying bonds are callable.
Yes.
So if you can issue new bonds and the old bonds are callable in 90 days or less, under tax law, we could do that on a tax exempt basis. If it's more than 90 days, we must do taxable.
Yes.
The interest rate differential between a taxable transaction and a tax exempt transaction depends on each individual bond maturity. In the first few years, it's not that much. It's, 5, 6 basis points. When we get out 20 to 30 years from now, it could be as much as 40 or 50. So it really just depends on the actual individual maturity. If tax exempt advanced refunding was available to the district, that is what we would be recommending.
Well, yeah, I guess it just appeared to me like the difference wasn't that great. So if we were considering, if we were outside of the 90-day window, then the taxable version would not be, that severe, because it looked to me like the difference is not that great between the two. And I do understand you have to be within 90 days in order for it to be not, the non-taxable version.
So I see what you're saying right
Yes,
now.
sir.
You're looking at the difference between the 1.8 on the 2011, 2012 bonds versus the 244 on the bonds that go out to 2045. Keep in mind that the first series of bonds mature in 2033. The farther you go out, the higher the interest rate is going to be. So in fact, it probably is going to be, on a tax exempt basis, be a little bit more than that 60 basis points. That's sort of a blended average, if you will.
Anyone else have a question? Thank you, Trustee Colton. Trustee Fahey has a question on the floor.
Yes, thank you. On our page 110, it states, that this is regarding terminology and refunding considerations. It says, in order to comply with the state mandate and based upon the coupon structure of taxable securities demanded by potential investors, a taxable refunding may require the use of the CABs, which we have tried not to do. Okay, that word may, does that also mean may not? And I mean,
So based upon, so that terminology is absolutely correct, that it may require, if we can build a premium before the call date to generate enough premium to buy down the principal, where you don't have to issue a premium capital appreciation bond. In Duncanville's ISD case, because once the taxable bonds are sold, everything after that call date, which is generally 10 years, because investors want a lockout period of a certain amount of time, which typically is 10 years. After 10 years, all those bonds are sold at par. So there's no way to generate a premium. So in Duncanville's case, we're actually forced to issue capital appreciation bonds to meet the statement. Can't talk unless second board meeting tonight, and I can't talk at this one. We would actually have to issue the capital appreciation bonds to meet the state mandated test. That's the 10.7 million we talked about a little bit earlier. However, those bonds would mature first, because we want to get those out of the way, and they would mature fully by 2027. Where CABs got a bad name was several years ago. There was a district in South Texas that was selling 40-year caps and deferring all those payments to the end. And if you look at a scale of what you get, in the first 10 years on a cab, you're basically getting somewhere between 90 and 99 cents on the dollar. 40 years out, you're getting close to 15 cents on the dollar. That's why the state has sort of put restrictions on capital appreciation bonds, meaning they can't be more than 25% of your total debt portfolio, and they can't go beyond 20 years. both of which we satisfy here.
Thank you. More than enough that I needed to have sink in. Thank you.
Seeing that there aren't any more questions, we will move now to agenda item B. We will move to the information discussion agenda item B, District Academic Performance Report. The presenter is Dr. Karen Halachka.
Good evening again, Madam Vice President, trustees, and Dr. Smith. During the spring of 2021, our students took the state STAR test in 3rd grade through 8th grade and the STAR end-of-course exams for 4 high school subjects. Tonight, I'm going to share with you the results of these exams as required and discuss the influence of COVID-19 and the evidence of student learning loss. Although the practice of taking a state exam in the spring is normal, there was nothing normal about last year with the learning disruptions caused by the pandemic. As a result, districts and schools received an accountability rating of not rated, declared state of disaster for the 2nd year in a row. Our last district accountability rating was in 2019, and our district received a B rating at that time. So you may ask, why did students even take STAR this year? Well, if you recall, in May of 2021, Duncanville ISD had approximately 60% of our students still learning in person, and 40% were still learning virtually. The Texas Education Agency required public school students to take STAR assessments in person, which created challenges for getting our virtual students to participate in testing. But because we do believe there is value in assessing the learning of students, we needed to know where the learning gaps were for our students, so the district created a Show Up and Shine on STAR campaign, and were able to get 92% of our students on campuses to test. That number is only 7% below our 2019 STAR participation rate of 99%. As a result, teachers have performance data for their students and are able to better develop plans for intervention and enrichment. As stated, the STAR performance results in 2021 were simply for creating learning plans and determining how to overcome the gaps created in student progress as a result of the pandemic. The use of the 2021 STAR results were not used for rating campuses or the district. It did not affect student promotion, and even our graduates had other options for meeting the graduation requirements through an individual graduation committee, where they could complete curriculum mastery assignments for graduation if they still had STAR assessments they had not taken or passed. In 2021, there were still 4 performance categories for each STAR assessment, which were did not meet grade level, approaches grade level, meets grade level, and master's grade level. A student is considered to have passed STAR at the approaches level, meaning their performance is approaching what would be expected for a student to be able to do based on state curriculum standards or TEKS. However, our goal in Duncanville, our goals are set higher than approaches because we want more students to reach the meets grade level standard. State accountability measures are complex, as you know, and are based on multiple factors, data, and equations. Therefore, school districts can no longer just look at the passing rates to determine how their schools and districts are performing. I'm not going to go through each number here, but I wanted you to see the 3 domains that we are measured in: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. Please note that these are raw component scores and are determined based on calculations and do not always represent true percentages. For example, with the STAR performance for 2021, this number is calculated by taking the percentage of approaches, meets, and masters for all grades and all subjects, and then divided by 3. You will see there are also several grayed out boxes which indicate where there were no scores because of the pandemic. And as a result, accountability ratings could not be given. It is obvious from our data that college career and military readiness remains a strength in Duncanville, as well as our ability to get students across the finish line of graduation. Although we definitely have gaps to fill as a result of the pandemic, there are areas to highlight. So let's get started looking at our data. As expected, STAR 3rd through 8th grade reading results showed the pandemic had a substantial impact on student learning. Duncanville ISD experienced declines at all grade levels in reading achievement, with losses being greater at 3rd and 4th grade than at 5th through 8th grades. Although we have several students meeting the passing standard of approaches as shown here, we are struggling to get students to that higher, more rigorous level, those more rigorous levels of meets and masters. For this reason, we're focusing on reading instruction and early interventions to help address the learning loss of our students. When looking at 3rd grade specifically in reading achievement, we can see that the scores are not at the level we would hope for all of our elementary campuses and are significantly below the state for many of our schools. This chart shows you the comparison of 3rd grade reading from 2019 to 2021. Remember, these are different groups of students, and the 3rd graders in 2021 had been in a pandemic for almost 15 months. The district average for 3rd grade reading showed a 21% drop in performance from 2019, with individual campus losses ranging from 5% to 38%. I do, however, want to highlight that there were still some positives. If you notice here, Hyman Elementary only had a 4% drop in scores, which is not statistically significant and something worth acknowledging. Our elementary campuses are all implementing intervention time into their schedules to help address the learning gaps and to target specific skills in which students are struggling. So for sake of time this evening, I'm not going to share the data for every grade level and every subject, but will instead focus on grades 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade reading and math and our high school end of course exams. For our 5th grade campuses in reading, you can see that all of our campuses performed at a consistent level with showing drops in performance at all campuses. These campuses are also implementing intervention times in their schedules to support students in recovering some of the skills lost as a result of the pandemic. Our reading gaps in 8th grade are similar to those observed in 3rd and 5th grade, ranging from a 19% decline to a 10% gap. What you might see here, though, is that our performance is much closer to the state's performance average and was above the state's performance at Kennemer Middle School. We definitely saw a trend that the pandemic seemed to have impacted the learning of our older students less than it impacted our younger students. We believe this is primarily due to our older students' levels of having that stronger foundational skills that are built in that carried them through the pandemic. So now that we've looked at reading, let's take a quick look at our math scores. Although our reading scores were not where we would want them to be, as predicted, COVID brought even sharper declines in our math scores across the district. Due to the lack of in-person learning and the daily in-person support of quality teachers, our students struggled at home with math, resulting in declines at all 3 performance levels. With our 3rd graders, you will see some significant drops at some campuses in math. Remember though, again, these are not the same students, and the third graders that tested were in second grade when the pandemic started and missed out on learning some very important foundational skills. Our district overall showed a 31% drop from 2019, but the state also showed a significant drop from 2019. Our fifth grade math comparison shows similar declines across the board, like third grade, with Daniel seeing the smallest difference and performing at the highest level and closer to the state average. Eighth grade is similar to our fifth grade performance, indicating the importance of our teachers working to spiral the curriculum in ninth grade to circle back and address the missing concepts so that students are fully prepared for the Algebra 1 end-of-course exam this year. So that completes our third, fifth, and eighth grade reading and math performance overview. So let's now take a look at our high school performance scores. For our high school students, our highest performance was in U.S. history. As with our 3 through 8 students, you can see that our students still struggle with reaching the more advanced levels of meets and masters on the end-of-course exams. Although our English 1 scores are not where we want them to be, the learning loss was minimal when compared to 2019, which is a positive. However, as you can see, state numbers improved and ours did not. As with the other grade levels discussed this evening, remember that these are not the same students being compared again. Pace, as an alternative campus, had a difficult time with student engagement, as we've previously discussed, and attendance during the pandemic. And their students are often those who have failed to pass a STAR EOC exam previously. Not being in person created a significant challenge for them. Algebra 1 data is somewhat different since it's not all the same grade level of students. Many of our advanced 8th graders are taking Algebra 1, and these students performed at a higher level than our high school students that took Algebra 1. However, we saw some dips, which is not surprising since we know the method of instruction, in person versus virtual, had a significant impact on the student achievement. So when compared to 2019, though, we had several of our middle school campuses that really shined. Byrd Middle School had 97% of their 8th graders that took Algebra 1 meet the passing standard. This is quite impressive, considering the factors that really impacted the learning environment for these students. Our high school students struggled a bit, which indicates a high need to fill the learning gaps here. The biology end-of-course exam did show that a majority of students met the passing standard when compared to 2019. Remember, different students. DHS only saw a small decrease, whereas PACE performed the same with no declines in performance. The English 2 scores were worthy of celebration with very limited declines. We are not at the state performance level, but we did not see significant regression here. And then as a district, we have consistently performed well in the U.S. history end-of-course exam, and this continued even amid the pandemic. Although we were below the state slightly, we still saw a majority of our students who met the passing standard. And I just really want to pause for just a moment and applaud our teachers and our campus administrators for their hard work throughout this last year. They really went above and beyond every day to ensure the needs of our students were met and that instruction remained rigorous, even though they were challenged in so many ways. So as a district, we have placed an emphasis on college readiness for several years. Therefore, it is important for us to also take a look at this time at how our students were impacted on their college entrance exams, as well as their state exams. A majority of our students take the SAT. This is a college readiness benchmark that is scored on a 1,600-point scale. Test components include evidence-based reading, math, and writing. The score range is 200 to 800 points for each component. As you can see from the data, a decline in scores was evident at local, state, and national levels. Duncanville ISD had 643 students that took the SAT, and they experienced a 63-point drop in average SAT scores during the 2021 school year. Like all the other data we have discussed this evening, these are not the same students, but does help paint a picture of the learning loss our students incurred as a result of COVID-19. So how are we going to address the learning gaps of our students? As I've shared with you throughout the presentation, the learning loss of our students was expected, which is why we have proactively planned for addressing our students' needs in numerous ways. If we walk through the school year with our students, we have two primary actions: measuring progress and responding to data. By implementing MAP growth to prescriptively identify student skills in need of improvement at the beginning, middle, and end of year, we will be able to measure progress to determine if our interventions are working. We are also going to measure the growth of students' SEL strategies using Panorama, which we discussed earlier this year as part of our ESSER funding. We know the impact a student's social emotional well-being has on their learning, so it is important that we measure and support their needs. We will act on the data in several ways, starting with when we added the instructional days to the calendar. We are also providing classroom intervention time, as I previously mentioned. Curriculum spiraling, which is that circling back to previously taught skills to make sure students retain the learning, is also a strategy we are utilizing. And of course, we are addressing our student engagement. Each action is for the purpose of ensuring we are catching our students up and reaching our goals as a district. One thing to note is that we are also focusing on our youngest students because we have seen firsthand that when a student lacks the foundational skills necessary for success, they will struggle throughout their whole academic journey. We want to proactively address this need and create a strong foundation for all students. So I know that I've shared a lot of information with you this evening, but I hope you were able to just get a glimpse of the impact COVID-19 has had on our student learning and recognize the efforts that we are making as a district at our campuses to overcome the learning loss of our students. Thank you for the opportunity to share performance data with you this evening, and of course I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing that there isn't any, we will move to the information discussion agenda. Item C, COVID-19 update. The presenter, Dr. Karen Halachka.
Thank you. So I'm pleased to share with you this evening an update on the impact of COVID-19 in Duncanville ISD and the actions we are continuing to take to ensure a safe and healthy learning environment for our staff and students. Prior to Labor Day, Dr. Smith communicated with our stakeholders about implementing a temporary mask mandate that started after the holiday. We know from our longitudinal data that we typically have spikes in COVID cases following a break. With families getting together, there is always an increased likelihood of transmission. Therefore, this added level of protection was enacted based on data and as a proactive safety measure. Requiring the wearing of masks is also an action that parents and staff members supported when surveyed earlier this year. We are also continuing to try to increase the number of staff and students that have been vaccinated as another precautionary measure. In partnership with Tom Thumb Albertsons, we offered a vaccination clinic on September 3rd. We had a total of 219 doses administered, with a majority of the participants being students. Students ages 12 and up are eligible to receive the Pfizer vaccine, which is what was provided. And then the second dose will be this Friday on September 24th. As I share each month, we try to give you the most current data. Therefore, these numbers are as of late this afternoon. So although we are continuing to be vigilant in our safety protocols and are taking additional measures of masks and vaccines, we are still seeing a number of student cases with 420 cases totaled this year. However, with the mask mandate, we saw a significant drop last week. The decline each week is a positive sign and further indicates that our efforts are working and our schools are safe. I will now turn it over to Kathleen Brown to share our staff COVID numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Arlock. Okay, good evening. I would like to take this time to share with you the number of staff COVID cases that we currently have. First, letting you know that our staff cases have decreased tremendously when we're comparing last year to this year. Where we once were seeing 25, 40, 50 cases per week, we are now seeing approximately 15 to 18 cases per week in staff. With access to the vaccination and continued mitigating factors such as wearing masks, as you heard Dr. Holochka mention, we are continuing to work to slow the spread of COVID in the district. We've had a total of 91 cases in staff since the start of school. And currently we have 22 positive cases, which is updated from the information that you have in front of you. We've seen a huge decline also in the number of staff members who need to quarantine due to exposure to COVID-19 as well. On last year, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act mandated that all employers provide their staff with paid leave due to COVID-19 for up to 2 weeks of paid leave. As you know, this leave ended on December 31st, 2020. We are very thankful that through a board resolution, you approved district paid sick leave for our staff through the end of the 2020-2021 school year. This gave staff time to take the option of getting a vaccination as we work to continue to slow the spread of COVID-19. So, like many other districts across the state this year, as we know, our district no longer offers district paid sick leave. Now, there are a couple of things that have happened with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and it is related to employers that employ 500 or fewer employees. The difference this year is that, like the flu or any other illness, employees choose whether or not they would like to be vaccinated. Although also like the flu, there are still breakthrough cases of COVID-19 occasionally. The vaccine has proven to be successful in slowing the spread of COVID when contracted. These employees overall have been showing milder symptoms. The other difference is that on last year, staff members were able to work from home if they felt well enough to do so, and we served a large portion of our students virtually throughout the year as well. This year, all staff members and students are back in person, so there is no longer that work from home option. The district gives all staff members access to 5 state days and 5 local days each year. And I pause there because the 5 state days, that's what the state says everyone gives. And I always talk to Dr. Bigby and we chuckle about the fact that we don't receive anything for those days. Those are just 5 days that the state requires. In addition to that, districts around us, some may give 2 days, 3 days of local leave, and so we commend you and appreciate you because we continue to match those 5 state days and also give our employees 5 local days as well. These days are at the disposal of each staff member to use as needed for personal business or other illnesses such as COVID, other medical procedures. The quarantine period aligns with the number of days that all staff members in Duncanville who are employed for the full year have access to use. In addition to these 10 days, employees who are a part of the sick leave bank in Duncanville also have the opportunity to request up to 30 days once all of their leave has been exhausted. And that is important. On last year, as you know, after spring, well, the year before that, after spring break, everything changed. So when you get to that point in the year, a lot of times an employee may have exhausted all of their leave. So that was part of the option of that district paid sick leave to make sure in the middle of that pandemic, no vaccine, that we were able to meet the needs of our staff members. So although we no longer offer district paid sick leave, this sick leave bank is another viable option for our staff that employees have the option to elect during the benefits enrollment period. Since the district gave district-paid sick leave on last year, employees who were out for COVID-related absences did not have to use their available leave. That equated to about 10 potential days that they could have carried over for this year. So if they had not used their time on last year, and we were given that district-paid sick leave, they were able to carry those 10 days forward, so then now they would have 20 if they have not used them. We have many employees in our district, we've looked, that have 30 or more days that they've accumulated over the years, so they have access to use those as well. So just as there is that attendance requirement for our students of 90%, of course we can encourage our staff members to be present as well. Sometimes at this point in the year, when we get to around Thanksgiving, an employee may have exhausted all of their leave, and so we're constantly having conversations about why we want to keep that leave, and so if we need it, we have access to it. So I wanted to give you all a little bit of information about that because I know that is something we've been speaking about each month. We know that our staff members will need to have time off at times, and we definitely support them to do so within policy. We appreciate your support as a board, not for just the DPSL that you gave us on last year, but also all of the other ways that you are continuing to support us in this pandemic. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have related to staff and the COVID update at this time.
Do we have any questions?
Okay, back to you, Dr. Halashvi.
Trustee Fahey?
Ms. Brown, our page 151 has our total positive cases for 21-22 was 391.
Yes, it pulled like our total cumulative, and we
Okay.
changed it because we wanted to show you what we have as of this school year. So our total positive cases for this school year is what you see on the screen.
It's just 91.
It's 91 in
Okay.
staff, and currently it's 22. That current number, it changes every day because as employees come back, that number will go down. If someone else tests positive, that number will go up. So it is constantly moving. It moved as I was sitting here. So in a moment, once we work on it, it'll be maybe different.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions?
We still have one more slide. Thank you, Ms. Brown. So as we have discussed many times this evening, there is a learning loss among our students due to the fact that so many chose to learn virtually last year, which impacted the opportunity to work directly with our teachers. Therefore, this year we are continuing to focus on increasing our enrollment and attendance numbers to get as many students as we can back in classrooms every day. Our enrollment has exceeded our projected enrollment and is at 11,951 students. However, the daily attendance of students continues to be a challenge that we are working to address through incentives, interventions, and tracking. So the pandemic has been an ongoing opportunity for us. However, I am very proud of the work our staff has done to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Their dedication and diligence to our safety protocols are making a difference, and as a result, our schools are safe and healthy learning environments for all. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any further questions? Seeing that we have none, we will now move to communications from citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, I have received 4 cards for communications from citizens. Allow me to please read this before you take the podium. We now move to communications from citizens, and we received 4. And before you make your way to the front, please allow me to read this. State law prohibits board members from responding to speakers in public forum unless a topic regards a matter specifically posted on tonight's agenda. The board will carefully consider any concerns expressed, and an administrator will investigate the matter. At your request, the administrator will contact you regarding your concern. Speakers will limit their comments to 3 minutes. If more than 5 speakers are present, speakers must limit their comments to 2 minutes. If delegations of more than 5 people plan to speak on the same topic, They should appoint one representative to speak on their behalf or be limited to 5 speakers. Any discussions concerning specific personnel is prohibited in open session. If you wish to address the board regarding a personnel matter, please contact the superintendent's office to schedule the matter for a future closed session meeting. Having stated that, please come forward as I call your name. State your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board. We will start with Diana Cross. Welcome.
Thank you very much for your time. I'm just gonna, talk about, I'm Diana Cross with RNDI, and we are a Hispanic woman-owned business, and we got a PO for $170,124, and we have been paid $0 after several attempts to get paid. We actually requested, to show us, to have a meeting. That was a month after. A month after, I talked to a representative of Duncanville ISD that claimed that we're not going to pay you unless you actually deduct your invoice. And they claimed to have liquidating damages. We proved that we did the job in less shifts than what it was on the specs, that the state was notified since June for the date that we completed, so there is no liquidating damages. So he said, we're gonna take another $20,000 because you did some damages. And we said, can we look at it so we can fix it, or can we see what it is? No, you're not. We're not gonna pay you. And then the meeting finished. We're still asking to be paid. We've been paid $0. We're a Hispanic woman-owned. And because of personalities, we're not gonna get paid. And it was because we turned in a complaint regarding somebody. The only thing we're asking you, you don't have time for all these drug out, all those problems. I just wanna be paid. I had a PO. We did complete the job by law. Why, not only that, why is this person bullying us, paying $0 over a dispute that is no more than 10%? This is a small business. $170,000, it matters to a woman-owned business. Instead of paying the undisputed amount and then go and do something, that was 90%. But no, they pay $0. So I'm asking you, please, do the right thing. The law says very clear, after 21 days, if you have not presented a claim, there is no claim. It wasn't given to us. It was after I complained about somebody and asked for our money. That was 30 days later, and we have proof. Until the day of today, we have not been shown any damages. I don't want to take your time. Please, 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 the only thing I'm asking you is to give us a chance to talk to somebody that is going to see the evidence and say, okay, resolve this, let's pay you. You were hired for this much, let's pay you. If there is anything, let's go look at it. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry for taking, some
No
of your
apology
time.
necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to call up Ms. Woods, Stephanie Woods, to the podium. Please state your full name and your address.
My name is Stephanie Woods. Address is 1208 Oak Creek Cove, Hutchins, Texas, 75141. Board of Trustees and Superintendent Mark Smith. My name is Stephanie Woods. I am a 17-year district educator for Duncanville ISD. Currently, I serve as a teacher of students who are blind and visually impaired. I am a daughter, an aunt, and a caretaker of my parents until a few days ago when I lost my father to COVID-19. I am speaking to you with a heavy heart, along with the unified voice of Southwest Dallas AFT members. to ask that the Board of Trustees provide COVID-19 paid leave for 2021-2022 school year. With COVID-19, we are living in an era of uncharted territory with scientific knowledge that is beyond our scope of understanding and has wreaked havoc on a person's life and well-being. Knowing that this virus is deadly and causes lingering side effects, it also creates mental, physical, and financial stress. Due to many factors, the use of personal days of mandatory leave. For the years that I have served in this district, this is one of the biggest disappointments and one that I have personally been affected by. I have always executed responsibility with my personal days due to the needs of my parents, meaning that they are a necessity and not just a want or desire. So I take my time off seriously. Not only do I have to worry about healing and coping with the negative physical and mental effects of COVID-19, but I also am stressed by the thought of exhausting my personal days. Filing for short-term disability because my check will be cut $300 to $400 or more per day, and having to file FML to protect my job because COVID-19 does not always end in 10 days. This does not maintain integrity, but signifies the exact opposite. Last year, I was impressed with the precautions Duncanville ISD implemented for the safety of staff and students. However, this year, rules have changed, and I became more cautious to protect myself, my family, students, and coworkers. That all changed when one of my students who had been absent for a few days received news that he tested positive for COVID-19. It was brought to my attention only after the student's sister informed me of the results. That following Monday, after being tested, I received the heart-wrenching confirmation that I was positive with COVID-19. Even though I have been taking precautions and was in quarantine, it was too late. My family had already unknowingly been exposed. 1 week later, my sister, my mother, and my father tested positive. 1 week and 3 days later, my father lost his life due to COVID-19. And this week, on Friday, we will be laying my father to rest. The City of Champions has the opportunity to demonstrate its dedication to the teachers, staff, and students it serves. I ask you to provide COVID-19 paid leave for 2021-2022 school year for the mandatory and necessary leave we must take to direct exposure and a positive COVID-19 test results. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. At this time, I would like to call Harith? Harith? State your name and your address, please.
Yes, Michael Harith, 705 Crockett Drive, Mansfield, Texas, 76063. Mike Harith, an intermediate bilingual teacher and member. I personally lost multiple people to COVID, including my mother-in-law. And recently, I was made aware of the situation of a fellow Duncanville ISD employee who lost her spouse due to COVID-19 complications and who is battling the virus herself as we speak. In order to follow COVID-19 quarantine policies, she used her 10 personal days. As of today, she has run out of paid leave. Most importantly, she has no paid leave days left to use for her spouse's passing because the district also does not provide bereavement leave. Since she is not able to report to campus, she will be docked pay. Even if we take every imaginable precaution against the spread of COVID-19, there is unfortunately still a chance that we or those close to us can catch the deadly virus. We are currently at a point when 1 in 500 Americans has tragically passed away from COVID-19. We need to do everything possible to protect those on the front lines of this deadly pandemic, including educators and all school staff who support our students. In order to do so, the district needs to provide Duncanville ISD employees with paid COVID-19 leave for the 2021-2022 school year. Educators are required by district policy to quarantine if we test positive for COVID-19, which is the safe and right thing to do. However, we should not have to worry about using our paid personal days for this purpose when we may need those days for other illnesses or milestone events such as weddings, funerals, the birth of a child, and other such events. Some staff do not even have adequate personal days to cover a prolonged absence from COVID-19. So they are being docked pay for catching a deadly disease or having to care for a family member that has succumbed to COVID-19. Educators are facing an extremely stressful school year, and in some ways even more stressful than the 2020-2021 school year. The right and just thing to do is to give staff 10 paid days of COVID-19 leave. This will give us one less thing to worry about. And Duncanville ISD has done so much already to combat the spread of COVID-19, and I know that the board will consider this measure to do what is best for our staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I would like to call now Mrs. Trice to the podium. Please state your full name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Yulena Trice. I am a teacher at Brandenburg Intermediate. I'm also a parent of 2 Duncanville ISD students, and I'm also a member of Southwest Dallas AFT. We are coming to you tonight along with the unified voice of Southwest Dallas AFT members and non-members to ask you that you strongly consider the adoption of an extension of the certain leaves benefits for staff required to quarantine due to COVID-19 diagnosis or due to close contact with an individual confirmed to have the virus. As of this date, Congress has not authorized an extension of leave benefit provisions of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which expired last spring. Given that more people are having to quarantine and the number of COVID cases are on the rise, teachers could be out for extended periods of time. After more than a year of working in the pandemic, Duncanville ISD teachers and staff are still making sacrifices. We have gone above and beyond to meet the academic and social, emotional needs of our students. We should not be asked to also sacrifice our earned paid leave when we contract COVID-19 or are required to quarantine due to exposure. Other districts in the area, such as Lancaster ISD and Dallas ISD, have ensured their employees are compensated for a period of 10 days. Southwest Dallas AFT urges the Duncanville Board of Trustees to do what is right by the employees and to extend the ability of employees to receive up to 80 hours or 10 days of emergency paid sick leave as described and originally provided by the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Thank you so much to the board for your time and consideration. We know that as always, you will do what is best for staff and students. We thank you so much from Southwest Dallas AFT.
Thank you, Mrs. Trice. Thank you to all that came to speak. Thank you for coming to the meeting. On behalf of the board, we would like to send our condolences to those who have lost their dear loved ones. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Being that there is no further items to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.